the end of the day, getting a big paycheck when actually what you try to do is build something, a company, workers, people, where you felt you were all doing it together. At the end of the day, you end up with a big paycheck and nothing, and you're just sitting at your house. That's not really what a lot of people have in mind for the end of their careers. And he represents that whole thing in the film.
Yeah, he does. And then Chris Cooper represents a whole other second-tier level of frustration. Very sad.
Yeah, look, the film is about is trying to be about, at least in its own small way, what's really happening in the country, which is we have tens of millions of people who are losing their jobs, having to reevaluate their lives. I think there is a lot of hopefulness that can come from it. There are good things, not to minimize how difficult it is, but people readjusting their lives, discovering that their families are still there, their friends. I think there are uplifting and hopeful things about it that Ben's character represents. But there are also, for older workers, for people who are in their 50s and above, this is a very, very difficult transition because most of the opportunities that are available are for extraordinary amount of underemployment, where if you do find a job, you're finding a job for substantially less than what you used to make or what your experience or educational background would really say that you should be receiving. And so I felt it was important to represent all of those things that are happening to people in the film, not just what can happen to kind of the younger, upwardly mobile workers who get oftentimes are getting serious sort of comeuppance based on their past spending habits and what they're expecting going to happen in their lives. But, some people aren't going to make it out the other side in the same way that they had hoped for. We have an amazing amount of resiliency in the American character. It's sort of what we're famous for, and for other countries actually don't always like about us.
No, but Ben Affleck's, Ben Affleck's character and his wife especially, she's so good. I got mad at the poster that she was left off, Remind me of her name.
Rosemary DeWitt.
Thank you very much.
Rosemary is wonderful actress and was wonderful in Rachel Getting Married. She played Rachel, and she's terrific in the film. And, she represents what I heard from a lot of women, which was that they were surprised by the lack of resiliency in their husbands and losing their jobs, and I think that's a bit of something that's been going on in the country where a lot of men find themselves in a position where they see themselves defined primarily by what it is that they do.
Right.
And that when they lose that thing, they think that they've actually lost their identity. And
the car and the house
and it's just
trappings.
Stuff. I don't mean to suggest that it's not difficult to have to go through these things, but it's just stuff.
They have to end up moving in with his family and working for her brother, played by Kevin Costner, who is fantastic in this.
He's great, and Kevin responded to the role. I didn't. He read the script and said, I would really like to play that role. And we had lunch, and he said, I'll show up and do it. And he was great. He gave us a couple of weeks. He said if you could fit it into my schedule, which was very busy, I'd love to do it. And he's terrific, and he represents a whole other part of the country, which is, the people who never were living particularly beyond their means, but are still kind of caught up in the difficulties of it. But also represents, I think, and is important, it's something that I heard from all different kinds of people that I interviewed, which is what they were surprised by is how many people actually came into that breach for them. That in these difficult times, their family, their friends, you could really tell who cared about you. Oftentimes it was people you didn't think really were the ones that were going to step up and make a difference in your life and help you. And that the strength of realizing that you're part of a community instead of just doing something on your own was a big part of what kind of got people through to the other side.
No, this movie was very moving to me, and it made me want other people to see it at the same time that I recognize that it's a tough sell. And I wondered how you felt about the fact that it started out at Sundance almost a year ago. And it has been sort of waiting until this moment to come out, and the Weinstein Company, picked it up. That was a great day. Obviously, you were very pleased. You took that chance that, God, somebody had to pick it up and believe in it and everything. And Harvey's a good salesman. But really, I would love to see this movie go out and be seen by the working class around the country, as well as the upper crust art house group that this would presumably be sold to.
Actually the film is going to go out on quite a few theaters in January, and that's one of the reasons why we backed off the art house release right now. What we discovered when we were testing the film is that the film played even better than with the art house groups, with the kind of more
Doesn't surprise me.
played really well in Riverside and Long Beach and communities where people came in and said, this is happening to me, this is happening to my family. Everybody I know has got some element of this to it. And it's not an easy sell because of what people's first impression of the film is. What we discovered when we were actually showing it to people is something that I hadn't really experienced in a long time.
They think it's about the corporate side.
It's about
it's partly the title.
It's that feeling that people have of, here's my story. And, there's a real value for that in the cinema. It doesn't only have to be about extraordinary events. And we had, showing after showing, entire audiences stay afterwards and kind of not leave. Normally you kind of have people fill out their cards and then they go. And people would want to stay and talk and tell us their stories about what had happened to them. We found people out in the lobbies talking and out in front of the theater still talking. We found the test groups that we did, people would raise their hands. We would ask at the end of every one, how many people here have actually had this happen to them or someone in their immediate family or a very close friend. Everybody in the audience raised their hands. We had another man who got up when we were asking him what their favorite parts of the movie were, and people talk about the humor, they talk about the things that made them smile, they talked about things that touched them, things that were sad, things that were uplifting. And one man raised his hand and said, what I loved about this movie is it made me feel like I'm not alone. I think we have this feeling in this country that if you lose your job, it's your fault, that there's shame attached to it, that you've done something wrong. And the truth is that in this economy, lots of people are losing their jobs simply because of what's happening in the economy, not because of any fault of their own.